There is exactly 1 month left before episode 9 hits theaters, and between now and June 4th, a lot is happening in this fandom. Leaked images, supposed frames from the episode, theories about Jax, the Void, the safe zones, and what happens now that Kane is gone. In this video, I want to cover all of it. Everything you need to know before you go into the last act. Let us start with something that Glitch definitely did not intend to happen. An image from episode 9 appeared on Twitter, stayed up long enough for someone to screenshot it, and then disappeared without any explanation or announcement. The screenshot shows the dormitory area, the hallway where the characters sleep, where their rooms are, except it does not look the way we have seen it before. The whole thing is dark and distorted, like the circus itself is rotting from the inside out, which after episode 8 makes complete sense. Kinger accidentally deleted Kane, and without him, the system that kept the digital world running has essentially collapsed. What we are looking at in that image is probably the result, but here is what caught my attention specifically. The angle is almost identical to a scene from the pilot, the one where Kaufmo, already abstracted, was chasing Pomni through that same hallway. Same framing, same general space, except the paintings are in different positions and the right side of the corridor looks completely destroyed. Now, this could mean nothing. Maybe they just reused a camera angle. That happens, but combined with everything else we know about episode 9, I think it means there is another chase scene coming, and whoever is doing the chasing is not in a great state of mind. The framing similarities to the pilot that I mentioned could be explained by the fact that it literally is the pilot, just manipulated. That said, I am not ready to dismiss the image entirely, and here is why. Unless Glitch specifically decided to recreate that dormitory scene from the pilot, but show it destroyed, which would actually make a lot of narrative sense. We already saw them do exactly that in episode 8, when they recreated the moment from the pilot where Pomni looks at herself in the mirror. Glitch has a very deliberate habit of going back to those early images and rebuilding them with new context, using the familiarity of a moment you already know to hit harder the second time around. And then, there is a second supposed leak that surfaced more recently. A frame, apparently from episode 9, showing Jax on his knees on the floor with a door visible beside him. If I had to theorize about what that moment represents, I would say that door belongs to Ribbit, and everything happening inside that space might be coming from Jax's own imagination. Because lately, he has not exactly been presenting as someone with a clear grip on what is real. His mental state going into episode 9 is one of the most interesting and least predictable things about the finale, and a scene like that would fit with where his arc seems to be heading. That said, theorizing around these supposed frames is somewhat pointless, and I say that because of something Gooseworks addressed directly. Someone asked her how she felt about people leaking parts of the episode, and she answered that nobody has actually leaked anything real despite her. So, whatever is circulating right now, she is not concerned about it, which either means everything floating around is fabricated, or it means the real stuff has not surfaced yet. Either way, take every supposed frame with a significant amount of skepticism. The promotional merchandise for the theatrical run has been generating a lot of conversation, specifically the popcorn buckets. One of them features Ragata and Jax, and both of them have scared faces on the design. That is not how we usually see these characters in promotional material. Jax especially is almost always shown with his usual smug expression. The fact that they went with scared for the official theatrical merch is deliberate. But the detail that the fandom latched onto immediately is that Jax is covering one of his eyes with his hand, just one eye, and nobody quite knows what that means. There is another image worth looking at carefully, and this one came directly from Glitch when they announced the episode 9 trailer. It shows all the characters gathered together, but the positioning is not random. Everyone is clustered toward the center of the frame except for Jax, who is standing off to the right side, slightly apart from the group. When you look at where they are placed relative to where episode 8 ended, it tracks. They moved from the corner where everything collapsed and took a few steps forward, trying to figure out what comes next. All of them look scared and shaken, the kind of expressions that come from not understanding what just happened or what is supposed to happen after. But Jax is not standing with them. He is to the side, looking down, separated, and you can read his position as someone who has already decided to do what he always does when things fall apart, which is to create distance. The honest take on that instinct is that it does not help anyone. When everything is destroyed and the group is trying to find a way forward, the most reasonable move is to stay together and think collectively. Pulling away from the group is the least useful thing Jax could do in that moment, but it is also entirely consistent with who he is and with everything we learned about him across the series. Because if you have been following this show closely, you already know that Jax's whole personality is essentially armor. The cruelty, the jokes, The deliberate distance he keeps from everyone, it is not who he actually is. It is how he survives in a place that has no exit. What episode 8 added to that picture is the backstory behind why he is comfortable staying in the circus at all. Before Pomni arrived, Jax had settled into that world. He was not trying to escape, and the clearest evidence of that comes from the end of episode 7, when he presses the red button after seeing flashbacks of what appears to be a car accident in his real life. Faced with the option of leaving, he chose to stay, driven by fear and by what that real world apparently holds for him. Then, episode 8 took it further, showing us the fears of each character, and what we got from Jax suggests that in the real world, he was probably a loser, someone who had very little going for him and even less power over his own circumstances. The circus changed that equation entirely. Inside the circus, he cannot die. The other characters are not real in the way people outside are real. There are no real consequences for anything he does, and nobody has the actual power to stop him. So, over time, he built a version of himself that operates on that logic, someone who does what he wants, steps on whoever he needs to, and does not particularly care about the fallout. At the same time, underneath all of that, there is something he genuinely misses. Ribbit and Kaufmo are the two figures in the circus that seem to matter to him in a way the others do not. His hatred of Kane was real too, rooted in being controlled and lied to constantly, but that is different from the absence he must feel now that Kaufmo is gone and Ribbit has been abstracted. Episode 8 cracked that armor in a way the show had never quite managed before. He volunteered to be a distraction for Kane purely to help the others, with nothing to gain from it. And then Kane still lied to everyone. You could see it in the way Jax reacted, the scribble pupils, the rage, none of it performed for once. He was genuinely broken by it. So, episode 9 is going to be the first time we see what Jax looks like with no performance left to fall back on. And I think there are two directions that could go. Either the weight of everything finally forces him to actually work with the group, to become part of something instead of above it, or he does the opposite and tries to become the new controlling force now that Kane is gone. He does not want to go back to the real world. He has made that clear. And if the circus is destroyed and the others are trying to find a way out or a way to fix things, Jax might be the one actively working against that. Not out of cruelty necessarily, but out of fear of what leaving actually means for him. On the other side of that dynamic is Pomni. Look at that same promotional image and you will notice she is positioned at the center, which is not accidental. She is the one who worries about everyone, the one who has been trying to understand how this world works since the moment she arrived. And at this point, she is probably the closest thing the group has to a leader, even if nobody has said it out loud. What makes her interesting going into episode 9 is something Kinger established in episode 8, which is that all of the characters can create things inside the system. Pomni has been doing this from the very beginning of the series, building doors, projecting spaces, extending her ability with each episode without fully realizing how far it goes. If episode 9 puts her in a position where she has to teach that skill to the others, where each person creates something, and all of those creations combine into a path forward, that would be a very glitch way of structuring a finale, using what was always there but never fully used. The problem is that Pomni's knowledge of how the system actually works is still limited. She knows what she can do but not why, and she knows almost nothing about C and A, about what Kane was, or about how the whole structure was built. That is where Kinger becomes essential. He was there from the beginning. He is one of the original workers, and what he shared in episode 8 is almost certainly a fraction of what he actually knows. The bucket on his head has always been a way of managing how much he lets himself remember, but now that the environment around him is dark and destroyed rather than artificially bright, there is an argument that the circus's chaos might actually help him stay more grounded. He has lived through the worst already. Maybe that context is what finally allows him to remember clearly, to stop filtering, and to tell everyone what they actually need to know. One of the things that has not been discussed enough in the lead up to episode 9 is what the destruction of Kane's system actually means for the character's survival inside the circus. The key concept here is the distinction between safe zones and the void. The circus itself, along with the adventure worlds Kane created, functioned as safe zones where the character's consciousness could remain stable and intact. The void is everything outside of that, and when a character enters it, their mind starts to drift. We saw this happen to Pomni in one of the earlier episodes when she opened a door into the void and ended up staring into it, completely dissociating, until Kane went in and pulled her back. That moment takes on a completely different weight now, because Kane is gone. If Pomni opens a door into the void again, or if any of them end up there without meaning to, there is nobody left to go in and bring them back. That safety net was Kane, and it has been removed. The question of how the characters navigate the void without him is one of the most practically urgent things episode 9 has to answer, and it connects directly to something Abel confirmed, that Kane was an AI specifically designed to keep their minds active and functional, generating worlds and experiences to prevent their consciousness from degrading. With him gone, the clock on that stability is no longer being managed by anything. There is one detail from earlier in the series that might become very relevant in episode 9, and the community has been going back and forth on what it actually means. In a scene where Kane checks his watch when a character appears in the void, you can see that the void has a measured boundary of around 3 kilometers. The void is not infinite, it ends somewhere. And if the characters can figure out where that boundary is and what exists beyond it, that might be the most direct path to an exit that the show has ever put in front of them. This reading is reinforced by the zoom out sequence that shows the circus from the outside, the void surrounding it, and then the entire thing visible as a program running on a computer screen in the real world. Everything inside the circus has a physical limit defined by the hardware it runs on, and that limit is the only thing between the characters and whatever is on the other side, which is probably what the synopsis is pointing toward when it ends with the phrase, "the other choice." Glitch released a description of the last act saying the characters will discover the truth about the digital circus and its history, and then asks whether they will come to terms with what they find or whether they will make the other choice. And then Glitch left it at exactly that, with no further context about what that choice actually involves. The fandom has been going back and forth between interpretations, but nobody has landed on something definitive. Some people think it is about abstraction, that the weight of discovering the truth finally pushes someone over the edge. Others think it refers to something more active, a decision the remaining characters make collectively about what to do with the circus now that Kane is gone. I lean toward the second reading, but I could be completely wrong. It would not be the first time this show surprised me. On the logistics side, Glitch has been expanding the theatrical release significantly. In Southeast Asia, they confirmed screenings in Indonesia, Singapore, Hong Kong, the Philippines, Macau, Malaysia, Taiwan, Thailand, and Laos. In Europe, the list now includes Greece, Bulgaria, Slovenia, Cyprus, Gibraltar, Malta, and Moldova, handled by a company called Piece of Magic Entertainment, who picked up distribution rights for the continent after pre-sales in the US crossed $5 million. The theatrical version comes with a new intro animation made exclusively for cinema audiences and a full recap of the series narrated by one of the characters. The Middle East will not be receiving screenings due to censorship restrictions, which leaves fans there waiting until June 19th alongside everyone else on YouTube. There is a lot still unknown about where episode 9 lands. The leaked images might be fabricated, the frames circulating might mean nothing, but the pieces that are confirmed, the character positioning in the promotional art, the void's boundaries, what Kinger knows, what Pomni can do, what Jax is afraid of, all of them point toward a finale that has been thought through very carefully. Whatever happens at the premiere, I will be breaking it down here. If you do not want to miss that, you know what to do. And drop a comment before you go. Do you think Jax abstracts in the finale, or does he make it out? Because everything the promotional material is telling us points in one direction, and I am still not sure I believe it.